In this video, we'll discuss about the cardiac cycle. So, the cardiac cycle, as you can see here, we have drawn a structure of heart. So, we haven't labeled everything, but this is just a rough diagram of what heart looks like. So, here we have the right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. Atrium are also known as auricle. And here we have the pulmonary artery, and here we have the semilunar valves, and the same thing with the aorta. Aorta also has semilunar valves. And these are the pulmonary veins, and these are the openings of those pulmonary veins. And then this is what we call as the inferior vena cava, and this is the superior vena cava. Vena cava means they are all veins. Aorta is an artery. So in cardiac cycle, there are 3 steps. The first one is what we call as auricular systole. Auricular systole. So before understanding all the steps of the cardiac cycle, we have to know what is systole and diastole. Systole means contraction. So systole, here we told auricular systole, that means auricles are contracting. Diastole means when they are in relaxed state. So systole is contraction, diastole is relaxation. So in the first step, that is auricular systole, here what happens is the blood is pumped into ventricles. So blood is pumped into ventricles in the auricular systole. So from the auricles, it is pumped into the ventricles. These are the ventricles. There are 4 chambers: left auricle or left atrium, right auricle, right ventricle, and left ventricle. So here in auricular systole, the blood, it gets pumped into the ventricles, and in the next step, the blood again goes back in the different of these blood vessels, and then at the end everything is relaxed. We'll take all those steps and we'll see. So in auricular systole, the blood is pumped into the ventricles, and the auricular ventricular valves, the auricular ventricular valves open. So let's see, where are these auricular ventricular valves? They are somewhat here, we know that here. The ones that actually are between the auricles and the ventricles. So auricular ventricular valves, they get opened because so that this allows the blood to get pumped inside the ventricles. So in this step, blood is pumped into the ventricles, but we are seeing what valves are being opened or closed. So here auricular ventricular valves are being opened because so that the blood here in the atrium can be pumped into the ventricles. Next, the valves of eustachius and sebaceous close. So these valves of eustachius and sebaceous, they are closed. Why they are closed? Let's see, where are the valves of eustachius and valves of sebaceous. The valve of eustachius is here in the inferior vena cava, and then this is what we call as coronary sinus. So this coronary sinus, the valve of the coronary sinus is the valve of sebaceous. So eustachius is this valve, sebaceous is this one, the valve of the coronary sinus. So the valves of these eustachius and sebaceous are closed. If they are open, what happens is the blood which is getting pumped into the ventricles, it flows in these vessels in the inferior vena cava and the coronary sinus. But we don't want that. We want the blood to get pumped inside the ventricles and not in the side blood vessels. So that's why the valve of eustachius and sebaceous, they get closed. Now let's talk about the second step. So this is auricular systole. The next one is ventricular systole. So here auricles are contracted in the first step. In ventricular systole, ventricles are getting contracted. So let's see what happens in this step. Here we told that auricular ventricular valves are opened here in auricular systole. In ventricular systole, these auricular valves closed. They are closed. So here they are open, and then in the next step these auriculoventricular valves get closed, and when they close there is a sound which is generated, and that is what we call as the first heart sound. First heart sound, and this first heart sound is lub. So we know that the heart sound is lub dub. So the first heart sound, that is lub, and this sound is generated when the auriculoventricular valves they get closed. They close by making this sound, that is the first heart sound lub. And the next thing, the another thing that happens in ventricular systole is the semilunar valves. So semilunar valves are present in the aorta and the pulmonary artery. Semilunar valves of the aorta and the pulmonary artery. So here these semilunar valves are open. They open so that the blood can pass through, can go out of the heart like this. Aorta, pulmonary artery. And pulmonary artery and aorta, these both are arteries. We know the function of arteries, that is to take the blood away from the heart. So that's why they're taking the blood away from the heart. And that's why semilunar valves, they open so that the blood can be pumped out of the heart. This is what happens in the ventricular systole. Let's talk about the third one, the last step, that is called as joint diastole. Joint diastole. Now here what happens? As the name suggests, joint means both auricles and ventricles, they are in diastole. Diastole means relax. So auricles and ventricles, they get relaxed in this step, that is joint diastole. So here we can write that all chambers relaxed. And one more thing, here we know that semilunar valves, they are open. Now they get closed. Semilunar valves close, and they close by making the second heart sound. Second heart sound, that is dub. So lub dub. Lub is the first heart sound, and that is generated, that is produced by the closure of auriculoventricular valves, and dub, that is the second heart sound, that is generated when semilunar valves they close in the step of joint diastole. So here all the chambers are relaxed. So these are the three steps that happen in the cardiac cycle. Now let us take a look at the duration, the time, the amount of time it takes for all these steps. Auricular systole, it takes 0.1 second, that is 0.1 second only, for all these things to happen. Ventricular systole, it takes 0.3 seconds, 0.3 seconds to happen, this one. And then joint diastole, it takes 0.4 seconds. That means these auricular systole, ventricular systole, they are happening in less than 0.5 seconds. So 0.1 second, 0.3 second, and joint diastole, here everything is relaxed and it takes 0.4 seconds to get all the compartments relaxed. So if you add up all these numbers, that is 0.1, 0.1 plus 0.3 plus 0.4, we get 0.8, and the cardiac cycle takes place in just 0.8 seconds. It's less than 1 second. It just takes less than 1 second to complete one cardiac cycle. So cardiac cycle takes place in, the duration of the cardiac cycle is 0.8 seconds. So that is very less amount of time. In the less amount of time, these many things are happening. So again, let's summarize. Auricular systole, blood is pumped into the ventricles. So in auricular systole, blood is pumped inside. Ventricular systole, the blood is outside, so it's getting pumped out of the heart. And then joint diastole, everything is relaxed, and then again the cardiac cycle continues. So here we told cycle, that means this process goes on forever. So again, auricular systole, blood is pumped inside the ventricles. Ventricular valves, they are open, and the valve of the eustachius and the sebaceous, they are closed. Ventricular systole, auricular ventricular valves, they are closed, so these are closed, and by making the first heart sound, that is lub, and semilunar valves of the aorta and the pulmonary artery, they are open, so that the blood can get out of the heart. Joint diastole, here all the chambers are relaxed now, and the semilunar valves has to get closed, and by they make the second heart sound, that is dub. Now lub is of longer duration and dub is of smaller duration, but lub, this one is less loud. Dub is, it's a very loud or sharper, we can tell. So in this video we discussed about the cardiac cycle, all the steps that happen in the cardiac cycle. First, blood is pumped into the into the ventricles, and then blood again goes out of the heart, and then everything is relaxed, and it happens again and again. So cycle means it happens forever. So in this video we discussed about the cardiac cycle.